Hello, this is Derek Smalls, formerly of the band formerly known as Spinal Tap, and you're listening to The 500 with Josh Adam Myers, and you should turn it the fuck up.
I get high, blood and pressure when you call my name. I get high, blood and pressure when you call my name.
Did y'all hear that? We had Derek Smalls from Spinal Tap intro the episode this week. The song you're listening to was Huey Piano Smith Medley by Dr. John from his 1972 album, Dr. John's Gumbo. It's also number 404 out of 500 on the 500 with Josh Adam Myers. I don't even have to change my voice to sound like Dr. John. I just talk naturally, and then, hey, how you doing? Is that Dr. John? No, it's me, Josh Adam Myers. Are you sure? Because it sounds like Dr. John. I swear to God. How's all the Fleece Army doing this week? Dude, do the Instagram story. Show everybody how you're listening to the 500. Take a screenshot of however you're listening to it. Tag me at Josh Adam Myers. Tag the 500 podcast. And then why don't you put a Fleece Army so we can build this army. The fleeciest of the armies. Also, check out our sponsor this week, Sunset Lake CBD from Vermont. They use organic fertilizers, whatever you guys need in the CBD department. If you like smoking pot but you don't want to get high, they got hand-trimmed CBD hemp flower pre-rolls that you can take anywhere, and they're great. Set you on a nice, even Steven vibe. And if you don't like smoking, they've got that CBD gummies, guys. They got tinctures, topical salves for the muscles that hurt, and this oil that I give to my dog. This is no bullshit. I give this CBD to my dog, Lekka. She hurt her paw, and it saved her paw. It's incredible, guys. Check them out, Sunset Lake CBD. Use promo code JAM500 for 15% off your next purchase. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't believe in it, and I believe in Sunset Lake CBD. Also, Fleece Army, we have our Patreon. The 500 Club is alive and well, and we are posting full episodes of all the episodes from the last 2 years on our Patreon, guys. Go to Patreon and sign up. We give you new merch made by Young and Sick. Great stuff, guys. Sign up for the 500 Club. You deserve it. We deserve it. Let's help support this incredible show with 95 people working on it. We have 95 employees on this. Let's find out about this record, because I knew about Dr. John. I knew of him. I knew, like, some of the hits, but I never really dug into a Dr. John album. And, you know, when you get a guest like we have today, it works out perfectly. Released on April 20th, 1972 on ATCO Records. I'm assuming that's Atco. Produced by Harold Batiste and Jerry Wexler. This is the fifth album by New Orleans singer Dr. John. So he was born Malcolm Mack Rebenack Jr. in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1941 and raised in the Third Ward, and he came from a musical family that exposed him to jazz. He didn't take lessons until his teens, but Mack quickly started playing guitar in clubs. Then at 13, he met local legend Roy Bird, who was an early rhythm and blues singer and piano player, also professionally known as Professor Longhair. Great name. He was so taken with the musicianship and personal style of Fess, I guess that's what they called him, that he started performing with him in the mid-50s and began his professional music career. While still in high school, he became a songwriter and artist at Aladdin Records, and then became a producer and arranger for Ace Records, where he worked with so many of the greats. By the late 50s, while still a teenager, he was playing guitar with lots of other musicians, writing rock and roll songs, and producing and arranging. Cool little fact about Mack, after having a hit, he lied about his age by a year so he could get into the gigs, and it wasn't even noticed and fixed until 2018. But after an injury to his finger, which stopped his ability to play guitar, he switched first to bass, then to piano. And in the early 60s, Mack got caught up with some pretty illegal shit and went to prison for 2 years. When he got out in 65, he found a lot of the club scene shut down in New Orleans, so he followed all the fellow musicians that he knew to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, he quickly became an in-demand session player, as well as a member of the Wrecking Crew. But then in 1968, he created a psychedelic voodoo persona that he called Dr. John the Night Tripper, originally for a friend of his, who declined, so Mac was like, fuck this shit, I'm taking it, and recorded his first album. With a stage show featuring elaborate traditional costumes and voodoo rituals, he released 3 more albums in that style. But for his next album, he went back to his roots. In his autobiography, he wrote, in 1972, I recorded Gumbo, an album that was both a tribute to and my interpretation of the music I had grown up with in New Orleans in the late 40s and 50s. I tried to keep a lot of little changes that were characteristic of New Orleans while working on my own funknology on piano and guitar. That traditional direction and the accessibility of those songs finally broke Mac through to mainstream listeners and paved the way for the success of his follow-up album, In the Right Place, which was his highest charting. If you guys all know that one, it goes, Mama in the right place, talk about the wrong time. And that was spot on impersonation. Mac remained a force of nature in the music industry and played with everyone. From Aretha Franklin, the Rolling Stones, the band, Frank Zappa, Carly Simon, I can go on and on. Bruce Springsteen, the Neville Brothers, played with The Edge, Spiritualized, Black Keys, played with everybody. He won a shitload of stuff, man. He won 6 Grammys. In 2011, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and his birthday is now recognized by the New Orleans City Council as Dr. John Day. And November as Mac Month. That is badass, man. You know what I mean? Maybe Germantown, Maryland, they'll recognize me one day. There's this Instagram page called The Moco Show, and it just talks about all things Montgomery County, Maryland. And like, dude will not recognize me. Am I not doing shit? Because I'm doing shit. No, but Mac deserves it, man. Mac, I mean, you know, you listen to this record, you know, and you get taken away to a place that I've been to New Orleans, but it's like you feel like you're just in the center of everything there. You can smell the gumbo, the jambalaya, and I think Mac 100% deserves any honor he gets. And I have a guest today whose second home is New Orleans, and this dude is so important to my comedic journey, being that he voices Mr. Burns, Smithers, Principal Skinner, Ned Flanders, Reverend Lovejoy, Kent Brockman, Dr. Hibbert. I can go on and on from The Simpsons. Also, he's 1/3 of one of my favorite comedic trios ever from Spinal Tap, the one and only Derek Smalls, a.k.a. you know him now as his real name, the legend, Harry Shearer. I am such a fan of this guy's work. And so when we found out that the Dr. John record was coming up, it was like, I mean, we can't get Dr. John because he passed away. So let's get a person that, I mean, wrote an epilogue about his life, worked with him, knows him, lives in New Orleans. Just, dude, this is great. And this is why I do the show. Rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the 500 and listen free on every platform. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and leave us a review. Also, guys, October 8th, I'm going to be doing a goddamn comedy jam at the In Crowd. We'll have a ticket link up soon. It's going to have some of your favorite comedians all doing stand-up, then telling a story about why they chose the song they're going to sing, then singing that song with a live band. And you can watch it all from the comfort of your house. It's going to be awesome. Check my Instagram at Josh Adam Myers for all the details, and my Twitter, all my shit. Just check it. Email the podcast at 500podcast@gmail.com. Follow the Facebook group, The 500 Podcast with Jam. And for all things 500, go to our website, the500podcast.com. Well, guys, nothing left to say, but here we go with number 404 out of 500 with Dr. John's Gumbo by Dr. John. If at any moment you want to start making fun of me as Mr. Burns, please, dear God, do it. I could die a happy man. Mm-hmm. The first thing I did to Tress McNeil, I was like, please just yell at me as Agnes Skinner, because she's my favorite character in the history of anything.
Yeah, no, Tress is one of my favorite people too.
Oh, she's so great.
Yeah.
Oh, she's just so great. So, and also I think the most quoted line me and my sister have from Spinal Tap is not the famous ones. It's you saying, David, smell the glove is here. Hello, Janine. Just that's the one that stuck with me, dude.
I haven't seen that movie in decades, so but you brought that to mind, so
No, I love it.
I saw that moment. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So this is actually really weird that we're doing this too, talking about an album that's so New Orleans, because I'm pretty sure that tomorrow is the 15th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. So I almost feel like this is apropos that we're talking about such a deep New Orleans rooted record. So tell me, when did you first hear Dr. John?
Well, first of all, I want to say, as deeply rooted in New Orleans as that record seems to be, it was recorded in Studio City, California.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think most of his early records were. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look it up, but I happen to know about Gumbo that it was. And we down there like to refer to the 15th anniversary of the federal flood, because the hurricane did great damage along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but the damage to New Orleans was visibly different in the sense that you can tell the difference between wind damage and water damage. And we got water damage from the failure of a federal protection system. So
yeah, I'll never forget that. That was such a crazy time in the world. Maybe right now it rivals that, but it was, what's so great about New Orleans is that I went down to New Orleans a few years later. So that was 2006, and I went in 2008 and it's for All-Star Weekend, and you could just see the love for the city, and it didn't stop the people. Like, the people are what makes that city. It's not the buildings.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. One of my final note on this before we get back to the record, but one of my favorite experiences ever was the first Mardi Gras after the flood, which is February of 2006. And people were well-meaning people, let's be overly generous.
Yeah.
Well-meaning people were saying, "What are you people doing having a Mardi Gras in the middle of, your city has just recovered from being underwater, and you're doing this?" And the only answer that was possible, at least it was the answer that I found possible, was, "This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we know we're still here. This is what we do." And it was only for the locals. There were no tourists there, and it was satirical. It was viciously attacking every person in authority who fucked the situation up. It was, people came out in the streets to laugh uproariously at the creators of their disaster, and then went back to, gutting their homes.
Yeah.
It was remarkable.
Yeah.
My first experience with Mac Rabenak,
Yeah.
the real name of Dr. John, was I had a friend who saw it as one of his purposes in life to turn me on to marijuana. I was a late adopter.
That's a good friend, dude. That's a good friend.
No shit. And he really had to work at it, because the first 9 times that I smoked marijuana, I felt nothing.
Really?
Yeah. I was just, well, we can go off on a whole tangent there, but and we'll smoke some, and we will.
Yeah.
But no, it was just there was nothing going on, and so he'd play records to try to enhance the vibe, and one of the first, maybe the first record that he put on was Gree.
Okay.
And I was more intoxicated by the record than I was by the marijuana. Let's put it that way. I just thought, I hadn't heard anything like that. I had heard the mid-'60s hits from New Orleans, Mother-in-Law and all those Alan Toussaint songs that were recorded by different artists, Ernie K-Doe or Lee Dorsey, and all those. But I had no reference point. And here comes this guy with this utterly otherworldly kind of view of things, as this voodoo guy. And as it turns out, a lot of the reference points in that record were really fairly ordinary New Orleans references, like Mama Roo. When you learn what a roux is, it's just the way you start a lot of sauces. So I had, I knew stuff about, I knew a little stuff about New Orleans, but I didn't know much. And then, so I was totally captured by the record. As I say, it was easier for that to become a habit than for weed. And then I followed him pretty closely after that. And this record, as you know, was the first time that he kind of abandoned the Dr. John the Night Tripper character and just became Dr. John, and dropped the voodoo, and in this record kind of just paid tribute to. Well, I mean, it's amazing. There are 3 Earl King songs on this record.
Yeah,
and Earl King is not widely known outside New Orleans, but I was fortunate enough to see him a bunch before he passed away. Remarkable guitar player, incredible songwriter. A bit undependable as a live performer, but you hope there have been a few people like that in New Orleans, and the up shows are so great. I mean, there's the guy called Johnny Adams. I don't know if you ever heard Johnny Adams.
No.
Oh my God, Johnny Adams had an R&B career in the 50s where his nickname was the Tan Canary. Those kind of names they used to give people in those days. Yeah. And then he had a comeback career in the 90s and aughts as a jazz singer. And he made a bunch of records on Rounder in New Orleans. One of the most amazing singers you'll ever hear. Amazing voice, and always dressed to the nines. His handkerchief and his socks and everything matched. And there were gigs where you thought, he stopped caring after he put the suit on. Yeah. And then there were gigs where you thought, I've never heard a better voice in my life. So Earl King is one of those people who you took your chances, but on the great nights, my God. And he wrote 3 of the songs on Gumbo. They are New Orleans classics all. That's why they're on the record. So it's really a great catalog of some of the, there's a canon of New Orleans songs that are.
Yeah, this is him going back to his roots. So I found this quote in his autobiography. Max said, in 1972, I recorded Gumbo, an album that was both a tribute to and my interpretation of the music I had grown up with in New Orleans in the late 40s and 50s. I tried to keep a lot of little changes that were characteristic of New Orleans while working on my own, and I love this, funknology on piano and guitar. So Harry, for me, I have always heard Mac's music. You'd heard of Dr. John. You know that voice is so just you hear it and you know immediately it's him.
It's a trademark, baby.
Yeah, how you do it? I mean, I assume you know what's funny? The voice that I do on F is for Family, DJ Howlin' Hank, is literally just like a mishmash of Dr. John and Wolfgang. It's just all right, baby, how we doing? Okay, but that's what I'm saying. He's such a character, and this is my first, drinking from the well of Dr. John. I know, I was in the wrong place. Baba Diva Ski, I know that. But this was my first real album of his. And to be honest with you, I couldn't have had more fun listening to this record. It captures everything that I envision New Orleans is. Just a fun party town. The music comes on, you can't not dance to this. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't feel this record, then you're dead inside.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. So I can see why, you gravitated towards this. I'm a little upset that it took 9 times for you to get high. I want to know, what was it like the 10th time you got high and listened to this record?
It wasn't this record that was playing when I actually got high the first time. It was. I'm not going to mention that record in this context because it just seems wildly inappropriate.
Dude, it's so. But I want to know, because not only did you grow as a fan, but on your 2012 album, Can't Take a Hint, you actually had Mac sing a song you wrote called Autumn in New Orleans. Yeah. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I've been writing songs for a while, mainly satirical songs. But on that album, I wrote 2, unfortunately, sincere songs. You know, I'm embarrassed to be sincere, one of those people. And I'd spent that year, this was 2010, and I'd spent that year almost every day in New Orleans. I had made a documentary about the flood, and I had made it in New Orleans, edited it in New Orleans, and then was going to bring it out the 5th anniversary of the flood and in New Orleans. And so I went through the whole meteorological year, and I had that experience in mid to late September of the day when the summer finally quits. The heat breaks. You can open the windows. You can air out the house because you don't need the AC on. And it's just the city has this great exhale of relief. That's summer's over. And I thought nobody's ever written about that. They've written about autumn in New York, obviously, and a few other places. And so I just channeled my inner Hoagie Carmichael and wrote a song about autumn in New Orleans, which is sort of a list song, just all the signs that autumn has arrived. And I did the demo of it, but I thought, nah. And I'd run into Mac a few times, and we have a mutual friend, David Torkanowski, who's a wonderful New Orleans piano player. And we just called up Mac and said, do you want to do this? Would you be willing to do this? And mercifully, he said yes. And we got him in a studio and got him to record it. It was pretty spectacular experience, you know.
It was everything you had dreamed of.
Yeah.
Like just jamming. Because he's such a legend. I mean, before even going solo, he's one of the Wrecking Crew. I mean, the guy was the go-to guitarist and then eventually pianist. I mean, that's...
You know why he switched.
Oh, I know. Trust me. He was defending a friend and he got his finger blown off, right?
Yeah.
That's the most badass shit ever, dude.
But the idea
it goes with the character.
The idea that what you do when you lose a finger as a guitarist is take up the piano is equally crazy.
He's like, I can't stop, man.
Equally crazy.
He's like, I got to keep going.
Yeah, but I mean, the piano, if any instrument wants 10 fingers on it, it's the piano.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, no, 9 will be good enough.
9's perfect. He's like, I can do it.
So, yeah, I mean, he was well along in his life. So I wasn't going to waste his time by telling him all the gigs I'd seen and all that shit. You know, I figured didn't need that. Let's have fun and do the song. But I mean, I'd seen Mac gigs at Jazz Fest, you know, too numerous to mention.
Yeah. As
well as when I was in London, he came over to London and played Ronnie Scott's. It was killer. So yeah, we've intersected a good few times, you know.
You're a fan, dude.
Yeah, but you know, we're also fellow New Orleanians at this point, you know, and we run into each other in various situations.
I love that.
You know, the obviously Iko Iko was the song on this record that really was his breakout hit. That was, I think, the first song that got major, let's say, radio airplay. I mean, the Gree got kind of underground radio airplay, but Iko Iko was a proper hit. And it's really, if you think about it, it's the broadest exposure that the patois of the New Orleans Mardi Gras Indians has ever gotten. The Iko Iko and a lot of the otherwise indecipherable lyrics in that song are from Mardi Gras Indians who, I don't know if you know anything about them, but...
yeah, we have... this is written by James Sugarboy Crawford, also known as Giacomo, in 1953. Mm-hmm. This was a huge hit for the Dixie Cups in 65.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the most iconic and covered New Orleans songs ever. Here, let's play a little taste of it. Peter, play some.
We gone down to Orlean. We gon' catch a little horse on my own and we're Giacomo Finale now. Talking about hit now.
So, from my understanding, he wrote the song about two tribes of Mardi Gras Indians colliding at a parade. And for me, I mean, this is, when this album opened and this is how we're starting the record, I mean, I Go On Day is a song that I've heard, throughout my lifetime, but I've never heard it so funky, so fun. And speaking of that this is about Mardi Gras Indians colliding, I mean, this sounds like something that should be played as they're going down Bourbon Street and just dancing.
Well, they won't be going down Bourbon Street because that's where the tourists go, but they'd be going down some street in their neighborhood. You won't find Mardi Gras Indians on Bourbon Street. But come Mardi Gras Day, one of the great adventures is to find out where the Indians are. And they're usually under some freeway bridge at this point in time, the way the city has been deconstructed. But it's very hard to explain the whole Indian thing. It's much, much better to experience it because they don't follow any schedule. They don't follow any route. After a number of years of clashes with police, the police have learned that they don't have a permit. They're not going to get a permit. They're part of the culture of the community. They're, some will argue, almost a religious part of the culture, and that you protect them and let them be and let them do their own thing. The sort of the rough version is that these are groups or gangs that formed in the 19th century. And one version of the story is because in those days, Native Americans were the only people who treated Black Americans as people. They are paying homage to Native Americans by adopting some of their, by acting in emulation of Native American tribes. So they named themselves different tribes. Most pointedly, they make and wear a new set of suits, uniforms, feathered, spangled costumes every year. The guys do the sewing and all the beadwork. And they come out 3 days a year, Mardi Gras morning, and then 2 other days in contest. And the contest was originally kind of physical in nature. It was violent sometimes. It got transmuted over the decades into a contest purely of display. And the greatest compliment you can pay a Mardi Gras Indian is to tell him, man, you were the prettiest.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And they have this whole language of which Aiko, Giacomo Finande is part. And so, as I say, Dr. John managed to mainstream part of this very, very exotic, while indigenous culture to the rest of the country, who had no idea of any of this, but they just loved the sound and particularly the beat. That came to be called by many people the Bo Diddley beat, but it's really the Mardi Gras Indian beat.
No, I dig it. I want to talk to you about Worlds Colliding because with This Is Spinal Tap, you guys combined comedy and music, I think, better than anybody has ever done it. I remember seeing Spinal Tap on PBS when I was like 7.
PBS?
Maybe. I know, dude. It was like under American Masters or something. They were like honoring it. And dude, I thought it was real. I remember I went to Waxy Maxy the next day to go buy the record, and I was like, yeah, it should be in the heavy metal section. And they were like, no, this is in comedy. And I was like, what the hell? But dude, if you think about it, you guys are lampooning the heavy metal bands that came before the movie, and it also really satirizes the 80s metal scene that exploded a year or so later. And from what I know, bands like Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, and Nirvana would describe having these Spinal Tap moments in their career. The only band that really didn't like it is Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, because they had an album entitled Rockin' a Hard Place that had Stonehenge on the cover, which is great. So were you guys fans of heavy metal and the scene before this all started? Like, how did it come about? I know that's such a bland question, but I just love this so much. Like, so Tell me where you guys were at before you guys got started.
Okay. First of all, one of the two brothers in Oasis hated it too.
Really?
The crazy
They
one.
would. They seem a little like they can't take a joke sometimes.
Right,
You know what
right. The band originated as part of a TV show that we did a pilot. We had a pilot deal to do this show, and the show was a really simple idea, and it was with a major American network. I won't name it, but it's as simple as ABC. And the premise was, you see a guy in a lounge chair. You're seeing him from the back. He's got a remote in his hands and a TV in front of him, and he's clicking through the stuff on TV. And the show, the hour-long show, is what he's watching. The beauty part of that is that comedy sketches very often are really great and have terrible endings.
Yeah.
And so we had, a sketch and had a shit ending. Boom.
Yeah.
You remote clicks off before you have to get to the ending. And then there's something else, a commercial, fake commercial or something. And so it's the end of the day. We're going through the broadcast day kind of that he's watching. And at the end of the day, there's a parody of a show that was on in those days, hosted by Wolfman Jack, called the Midnight Special.
Oh, yeah.
So we created this band to be on there and do a silly song, do a dumb song called Rock and Roll Nightmare. And while we're filming that, while we're taping that, actually, we're on the floor. There's supposed to be smoke pouring down on us from above, and the camera's up there. And instead, it's hot oil because the smoke machine isn't working. So rather than killing the prop man, which I heard was illegal in California, we were on the floor just saying, what else do we do with these guys? We could do more stuff with these guys. And that was really the impetus for, we got together, we got into a hotel room in Beverly Hills, started writing the script, decided after 3 days, nobody will understand it if they read it. Let's take the money and go make a demo of what the film would be. And we made a 20-minute demo with many of the songs and a lot of the jokes, and took it around to every movie studio. Every one of the big studios in Hollywood. And after the lights would come up after we showed it, in every one, the stares were blanker than Dan Scavino's at the Republican convention.
Yeah.
If you saw that look.
Yeah, dude. They all had looks like that.
Yeah, it was all the Dan Scavino look. And it's like, well, what's that then? We said, well, that would be a feature film, sir. Oh, rock and roll movies don't make any money. So we almost didn't ever get to make it, except that Rob knew Norman Lear, because Norman Lear had been the producer of All in the Family, and Rob was one of the stars on the show. And for about 2 years, Norman Lear ran a little movie studio, co-ran it. And so he greenlit it, and that's the only reason it got made in the first place. And then we just decided we didn't really set out to make an improv movie. What we set out to do was to make a movie that looked like it was
real. You wanted a rock documentary, lampooning it, yeah.
And so improv was not the end; it was the means to make the movie look like what we claimed it was. And so every word of it was improvised, except for Patrick McNee's toast to Tap Into America. We wrote that for him.
Oh, that is. Did you have any idea, like just seeing where that genre of comedy has gone? Because you guys are the gold standard, in my opinion, of like the mockumentary.
Yeah.
So to see it grow, I mean, how does that? Are you shocked?
Yeah, I'm shocked and dismayed, because now Ricky Gervais came up to me when I met him in London years later and said, that was what inspired him to do The Office. So that's lovely. I think that Office is a great piece of work, especially the English one. But a lot of them, it's become just a kind of a camera trick at this point. We were very mindful. There's this guy who's a fan, inexplicably, of this semi-mediocre band. And the choices in what's being covered are his choices. It's his film.
Yeah.
There's a person who made, in our mockumentary universe, the mockumentary. The style has been adopted without that kind of understanding of the frame. So who's making this? who's shooting this? Why is this being captured? That all went away. So, now it's just, a lot of swish pans. You should pardon the expression.
Yeah.
I'm not being anti-anything. Swish pans is a technical term. But don't send letters. But so, I feel like, everything gets overdone and everything loses its impetus when repeated often enough, I guess.
No, I understand. But I can't thank you enough for making it. It's still, anytime I sing to my nieces, I always use the melody of Big Bottoms. So we have one that's like, sleep over, talking about sleeping, I'm coming over. And then I can keep going. It goes and goes and goes. All right, let's move on to the next song, Blow, Wind, Blow. So this might be my favorite moment on the record. Peter, play it. So cool thing about that little skadoodle that he did. All right, so this is the first of several Huey Piano Smith songs on the record. Now, Smith was a pioneer of rock and roll piano playing after merging the styles of jazz, boogie, and rhythm and blues together. Besides his own hits, he played piano in the studio for Little Richard and Earl King, and while he was on Ace Records, he helped sign Mac as a teenager. Now, why I say that and why it's cool is that lick that goes in between. So he created that shuffle lick where the right hand plays through the break. So it could be like boom, 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 dee doo, ba la boom, boom, da doo. That is one of the coolest things ever. Like, because I just thought that was just a staple in music. So to find out that this is the dude that did it is just blows my mind. It blows my wind and blows me back.
And it has become one of the trademarks of the New Orleans piano style. It is used by almost every pianist I know in town as just it happens in breaks, it happens in solos, it happens all over the place, but it is just an announcement that this is New Orleans style. And it happens in jazz, it happens in R&B, and happens in all kinds of music. One of the things I love about the city is that it is still, as ever, a piano town. The roots of jazz go back to piano players in brothels. Guys would be playing normally behind a curtain so that the patrons of the brothel didn't know.
So people could be getting dry humped.
Yeah,
get humped. Not
yeah,
even dry humped.
No, that's if you got cheated.
Yeah.
But the musicians were playing behind a curtain so that the white patrons didn't realize that they were being entertained by black performers, because that's how it was back then. But mainly it was pianists. That's where, the roots of jazz lie in the pianos of brothels. And New Orleans has remained a piano town. There are great guitarists in town, of course. But the piano remains the piano and the trumpet are the two musical symbols of New Orleans. And Huey Piano Smith, as you note, created a lot of the pieces of that style.
I would just love to be a fly on the wall when all of those piano players are like hanging out at the bar. They're like, yo, Big Frank, what you doing later? Dude, I'm playing a bukkake at 6 o'clock. Yep. I got the bukkake at 6. What are you doing? I'm doing a fuck fest at 7. All right. Well, don't forget to do that.
There's a documentary, I think it's by Les Blank, called Piano Players Rarely Play Together. So
check it out. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Big Chief.
Big Chief. Earl King gets credit. It was sort of also a lot of the credit goes to Professor Longhair, who was the first person to really play it, at least on piano. Earl King was a guitar player. And it's identified with Longhair also because he was a great whistler. And there's sequences in the song where the melody is not sung but whistled. But Earl definitely is a major contributor to it. Big Chief, again, Mardi Gras Indian reference. Big Chief is chief of the Indian tribe. and the lyrics describe the idea of what a chief is and what he can and can't do.
Such a great song. One of my favorite things is when you get the artist to do this guttural like woo-ha, and we found our first one on the record. Peter, play Max screaming.
Me feel 'em good. Me gon' do everything me could.
So you've got that. The song just pops, and then my favorite part is definitely the ending where they have that call and response. It's like if I just couldn't not move when listening to this. That style of music is just so incredible. But I wanted to go off and ask you something about the word Big Chief. So you have a new album coming out on October 30th, and you've been releasing a single and often a video each week in the run-up. It's titled The Many Moods of Donald Trump. And something tells me it may very well be something of a concept album. So,
you have to understand that the title itself is a joke because he has only one mood. Fuck me, fuck you. Yeah. That's the mood. That's the mood of Donald Trump. But the title is actually a rip from this. This goes deep, man.
Take me.
Put the mask on and hold your breath.
I'm in.
The Beach Boys had they were brothers. They were the Wilson brothers, and they had a father who managed them, Murray Wilson, one of the worst fathers in show business, maybe next to Joe Jackson.
Really?
Oh yeah. And for his last, he negotiated the label deal for the Beach Boys with Capitol. And the last deal he negotiated before they left for another company, he had negotiated a record for himself, although he had no history as a performer of any kind. I own that record.
Yeah, you do.
It is still in its original wrapping. It has never been played for good and sufficient reason. And the name of the record is The Many Moods of Murray Wilson.
Oh. But is there a coincidence that this record is dropping a week before the election? I mean,
well, the songs are coming out all through the election season. It's called good timing.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, it's
you could. The guy, you may have noticed, has a certain need for attention, and so I decided to satisfy it.
Oh God. He'll be like, Spinal Tap was terrible. Never was a fan of the Tap. always with the joking. The Simpsons. It's a bad show. Terrible show. It's on for 31 years. I don't care. It's terrible. It's on the
The ratings have been terrible. It's run for 32 years, but the ratings have sucked. Yeah.
All right.
No, he's a
dip, dude. He's a dip. I don't care if my listeners like him. We can love music together and still disagree over politics. He's a dip. And
Are you a New Yorker?
I'm from Washington D.C.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, if you either were a New Yorker or paid attention to New York, you knew what he was long since.
Yeah.
It's the same basic act when he in the early 90s used to call up the New York Post and the Daily News, the two tabloids in New York, pretending to be his own press agent, John Barron, and giving them tips like Marla Maples says it's the best sex she's ever had, and they knew it was him. And they printed it anyway, and then he got to denounce them. And that's the same act that's been going on, the same dance between him and the media ever since.
All right, so then I got to ask you this. Like when you see that these, not conspiracy theories, but almost like The Simpsons predicted it,
mm-hmm.
I mean, is there a discussion amongst the cast and the people involved? Because I know, from all the videos, and you've made these little shorts basically being very anti-Trump, which I love, and it makes me love the show even more. But I mean, what do you say to the people that say there is a psychic that is working on The Simpsons that's predicting the future?
I say, if there really was, we'd all be at the track every day and fuck the studio.
You're right. All right, moving on. Somebody changed the lock. This is the only original on the record, but in my opinion, it fits right in. Peter, play the intro. How do you feel when listening to this song? Any thoughts on it?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's sort of inspired by a traditional New Orleans song, which Mac then recorded on his 1992 record, Going Back to New Orleans, which is the mate to this record. Again, very few originals, but he's going back and getting some more of the classic New Orleans song. And the song on the 1992 record is "How Come My Dog Don't Bark When You Come Around." It's like somebody comes around, the dog doesn't bark, and it's his woman has been fucking him.
Ah, so the dog knows. The dog knows. The dog's comfortable. He's probably giving the dog some treats.
How come my dog don't bark when he come around? That's the song.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the same sort of message, but Mac was writing his own version of it for this record. Have you listened to Going Back to New Orleans?
I haven't. Like I said, I've so many records to listen to on this list, and I was listening to this one. I probably did like 12 to 13 listens. I know the hits by Mac, but I don't know his deep catalog. But I want to. It's great.
He had no hits from this record, but this is as deep, if not deeper, than Gumbo in terms of the dipping into the well of New Orleans classics. And I highly recommend it. This was one of the records I had when we did the 26 City Spinal Tap tour. This was my bus record.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's talk about fitting in, because we've mentioned The Simpsons, but you've been working as one of the stars since 1989, and you voice, some of the most iconic characters on the show: Principal Skinner, Ned Flanders, Mr. Burns, Waylon, Smithers, Reverend Lovejoy. I could go on. And you voiced Lenny, which I love so much.
Yeah, I did.
How long did it take you to lock in each character's voice? Like, and is there like an influence that you're looking to, or a direction you're trying to take them? Like, when they present you with these characters, how did you come up with them?
First of all, in almost every case, I think every case, I saw no drawings. The scripts were written and recorded before the drawings were done, so I had no idea what the characters looked like. So I'm seeing a script, and it has like a one-line description of the character. And I will tell you that almost no brain cells were used in the process of deciding how the character sounded. I saw the thing on the page, made an intuitive kind of leap, didn't do any analysis, didn't do any thinking really, and figured, all right, the first sound that comes out of my mouth will be it, unless they tell me, don't do that again. And they didn't. So... it was just, I guess, if I want to, in the same spirit in which Donald Trump said in his acceptance speech, I say very modestly, and I thought, no, stop there. Yeah. You got the laugh, babe. I can say very modestly that this was inspired guesswork is all I can tell you.
Oh, my goodness. So, did you have any idea of how special the show was going to be that first season? No. The idea that it ran for 32 years, that's the majority of my life.
I was going to say it's all of your life, but you look younger than you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I can say that very modestly. No, anybody who tells you that they knew something was going to be a big hit is lying, This is all a crapshoot. Everything has to line up just right. Somebody used to say, I think it was the great cynic of the 1920s, H.L. Mencken, said, you can never go broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public. And I would point to him the Super Mario Brothers movie, which lost $50 million trying to do just that. So even if you try to be absolutely cynical and go, okay, this is dumb enough for them, you have a good chance of missing. The great Mort Saul, on the other hand, used to say, be as smart and intelligent as you can be in your work. You never know when the audience will get it, but it makes your work better.
So, do you have a moment at the beginning of The Simpsons where you realized this was a special show, though? What was the moment you were like, holy shit, like this? Because I mean, I just can only remember being, 8, 9 years old and seeing it on Tracy Ullman, then seeing the Christmas special, and then it was the only show I wanted to watch. And so, I mean, it was just, you owned all the T-shirts. That's all we talked about. I mean, Christ, I have like I showed you earlier, I have Homer and Ralph and Agnes Skinner and Mo Sizlak tattooed on my arm. And it's
Wow.
like, it's more than just an animated television show. It's a part of American culture.
Yeah. I think I was attracted to it because of the way we were going to work. We were going to work all together, like doing old radio show style. And then I started seeing the scripts and I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. This is this network that barely exists at that time, the Fox broadcast network. In most cities, it was on UHF stations, which meant you had to have a special antenna or a coat hanger on your TV to get the channel in the first place. So, and the network, if you remember, you may not, because marketing may have not been interesting to you in those days, but the network was wildly promoting itself as all the shows had Fox attitude.
Yeah. I remember
Fox
that.
attitude.
Married with Children's got Fox attitude.
Yeah. So now what that meant, in fact, and I did know this when I joined the show. Jim Brooks was a successful and well-regarded movie director.
Yeah.
And Fox was trying to sign people like Jim, and not only people like Jim, but Jim, to give the network cred. And Jim was smart enough to negotiate a deal where there was no network interference in the show. And I knew that was a good sign. I knew that
That's a great sign.
Yeah, that would mean we'd have the range to be better than most. So those were my first inklings. We had started doing season 2 before season 1 really aired. So all we knew was we were good enough that we deserved a season 2.
Yeah.
But that non-interference was really has stayed crucial. And, we like to say, especially at the Republican convention, that America likes and respects success. But when The Simpsons became big and it became known that we had a deal that allowed no network interference, at the very same time, ABC had fired their programming president and hired a new one who said that he or she, I forget which, was going to add a whole new staff of program supervisors from the network to do exactly what we didn't have.
Yeah.
So, you'd think people would want to emulate this key to our success, and of course, no.
Yeah, dude, it's so great. Can I ask Mr. Burns a question?
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Yes.
How am I doing as host of this podcast?
You might put on real clothes first.
I'm in my comfies. What do you want me to do?
That's exactly my point.
We work from home, Mr. Burns.
Yes, I'll work you from home.
All right, I'd hang with Mr. Burns. I'd kick it with Burnsy. All right, let's move on.
I know what you mean.
Oh, Waylon?
I know what you mean.
Oh my God! I'm gonna have you do my voicemail message because I love
No,
it
you're
so
not.
much. No, I know. I can't. I'm trying my best to not fanboy out. So let's move on. Let's move on to mess around because I mean this is such a staple of Ray Charles' catalog. If you don't know and you've been living under a rock, this was written by Atlantic Records founder and president Ahmet Ertegun. Hopefully I said his last name wrong.
Yeah, and that's one of the most suspicious writing credits in the history of popular music. How does a record company president? Now, I'll tell you this. I'm not making aspersions against the late Ahmet Ertegun because he was a great force in the music business. But there was a guy you may have heard of, Dick Clark.
Oh, of course.
Who for years had a show on TV in the afternoon called American Bandstand. And in the age of the payola scandal, where DJs were taking money to play records, people wondered, how come Dick Clark didn't ever get, caught? And the reason was because he said, don't pay me money, just give me the publishing.
Wow. Big on Dick Clark. Smooth move.
Yeah. So I don't know. When I hear that a record company president has writing credit, I think of that story.
Yeah. But what I love about this song is that, this was a big hit for Ray Charles in 1953, but, Mac makes this his own. It's his own version.
Oh, yeah.
Here, Peter, play a little taste.
See that little girl with that diamond ring? She surely know how to do a thing. She know how to mess around. She still get down and mess around. Everybody go ahead and get down.
I mean, Ray Charles is so iconic, but this takes his version and then fuses it with that New Orleans sound, and in my opinion, it's perfect. It's a perfect cover of it.
Yeah, it is. It just that the beat that we heard in Iko Iko is a marching beat. That's the beat, as I said, of the Mardi Gras Indians, and that's a beat that energizes you, along with a certain amount of alcohol, to walk 3 or 4 miles, because that's what they do when they go out in the streets. This is a dancing beat, and this is like just a frenetic dancing beat. It's crazy good.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. All right, moving on to Let the Good Times Roll. And what I love the most about this song, and being that you are a bass player, is the bass. Peter, play the outro when Jimmy Calhoun is just going off. I mean, that is just fantastic. I gotta give props to Jimmy Calhoun. He's killing it throughout the whole record, but when he gets to shine in this, I just love it so much. And as you're a bass player, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I mean, do you just suddenly, you have to be gravitating towards that when you hear this?
Well, yeah, and you notice your ear goes much more to the bass for the pulse of this song than to the drums. That's nothing against the drummer, but that's very reminiscent of the Motown records, where James Jamerson or Carol Kay, whoever's doing the mainly Jamerson, basically you hear the drums on the turnarounds, bum ba da dum bum, but in the body of the song, the pulse is always carried by the bass, and to me, it's my bias. That's a more compelling pulse than the drums are. It just that makes you move every part of your body when a bass player is really killing it like that.
Oh, I love it. So this is based on Louis Jordan's 1946 jump blues song of the same name, and this is another one by Earl King. It was originally recorded as "Darling Honey Angel Child" before being retitled "Come On." Talking about rolling, I wanted to ask you about Le Show.
Yeah.
Because that's been rolling for 37 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
37 years, which, if my listeners don't know, it is Harry's weekly hour-long syndicated satirical, topical, political, sketch, comedy, musical. I mean, it's everything. It's a news program. It's a radio program.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast. With everything that you've got on your schedule, how and why has Le Show remained so consistent and important to you?
Well, because radio is such an efficient medium, in the sense that for every erg you put out of energy, you get so much more of a result than in television, where you have to have 50 people standing around, to basically be able to say hi. And I don't do, and I never have done stand-up. And this is a way of me making myself write and come up with new characters and keep it fresh. And every week I say, "Why the fuck are you doing this?" to myself as we approach deadline time. And every week I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
So it's just, and it's in this media universe, it's getting a little easier, but when I started it, it was not really that easy to have a thing of your own that nobody else, there was never a meeting beforehand. There was never a memo afterwards. It's just been me and the audience for this long period of time. And so no matter how constrained I may have felt in a job that I was going to do during the week, I had this little island of freedom.
Oh, I love that. It's the same thing with me doing the 500. It's like I'm so busy right now working on so many projects, and I look so forward to this. And I mean, of course, mine relies on the guest and the music, and I have this, but just to have that comedy, improv, mental jam session with yourself, I mean, like, have you taken something from the show and expanded on it even bigger?
Oh yeah, well the songs about Donald Trump were all written originally for the radio show, and I put demo versions on the radio show, and then I thought as we began this year, wow, I've collected enough to put together a record of the best ones, and then I went into the studio and did proper recording versions of them. So things come from the radio show and get another life more often than not. Yeah. The thing about it is, I don't know if this is true of everybody, but it's certainly true of me. I find my greatest inspiration in desperation.
I think that's the most true statement as an artist I've ever heard in my life.
I got to do something for the fucking show this week. What the fuck am I going to do? Oh, that's the process.
I mean, some of the best material I've ever written is when I'm dealing with the most amount of stress in my life, or when I was at my brokest. Mm-hmm. It was like stand up was just, you had to create.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't create, then
you
were gonna. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm eating good though. I'm eating real good, dude.
All right.
Dude, I got
high
salmon.
Off that hog. High off that hog.
I got salmon fillets. I got everything. Ooh. All right. Junko partner.
Junko.
Okay, well, I'm trying. All right, so Harry, do you remember when I said a few songs ago that song had my favorite moment on the album?
Yeah.
I lied. Kick it, Peter!
Roll down the road, here you come, Mr. Jones. Woo, boy, you on your back so hard. Got to say, Lord, it's hard.
I love it when an artist just knocks out all the instruments and it's just them and the drums. That might be one of my favorite things in music, and to hear that with Mac's voice, which is very similar to mine, my natural speaking voice. It's just phenomenal.
You haven't done to your voice what he did to his, though. I'm guessing. Really?
You don't know.
All right.
Me and Mac have a lot in common, which we're about to talk about.
Okay.
So,
Junko partner is pronounced that way because it's about junk.
Oh yeah, it's about the junk. And Mac was actually a heroin addict until he got clean in 1989. So we connected. I was an opiate fan many moons ago.
You were a dabbler?
I definitely dibble-dabbled. Just a little bit. I recommend it for everybody. Try fentanyl once. Just try it once. You're not going to stop, but try it once. So this blues song about a local junkie by James Wee Willie Waynes from 1951 has its roots in previous songs and has since been covered and revised in a bunch of musical styles, including reggae, folk, blues, and rock by many artists. So, I wanted to do this because a couple albums ago, we did Sandinista by The Clash, and we had Tom Morello on from Rage Against the Machine. And this song, when this came on, I didn't even realize it through the name, but my writing partner told me, he was like, dude, that's on The Clash. So we just listened to Junko Partner by Dr. John. Now, Peter, play a little bit by The Clash. I want you to hear this, Harry.
Down the road came a Junko partner. Boy, he was loaded. I can see he was knocked out
I love anytime somebody covers something, especially when you get to hear like two, just like, I mean, totally the different ends of the spectrum, and yet the heart of it is there. So according to Mac, this was well known among musicians in New Orleans and elsewhere as the anthem of the dopers, the whores, the pimps, and the cons. Mm-hmm. And I've read that many inmates in Angola, the state prison farm mentioned in the song, have written thousands of verses to this, with each sharing their experience. What are your thoughts on this, bud?
That's the best thing I've heard about Angola ever. It's a fearsome place. Yeah, this is the idea that this has one songwriting credit on it again is like a little amusing, because this is a song that's been built the way, let's say, land has been built by accretion over a long period of time. And so there are a lot of fingerprints on this song because it has gone through the experiences of so many people to get here. I know Professor Longhair before Mac had a pretty well-known version of it. I think James Booker, whom we haven't mentioned yet, but who is a seminal, not a Seminole, but a seminal New Orleans piano player who had, like you, some mild acquaintanceship with the subject of the song, had a killer version of it. Booker, I think, definitely influenced Mac. He is probably the least well-known New Orleans icon since Buddy Bolden, who basically is accredited with starting jazz in the first place, the first trumpet player to pick up the horn and play jazz. Booker was one of those people I was talking about earlier, that if you saw him on the right night, you just thought he'd died and gone to heaven. And if you saw him on another night, you thought he'd died, gone to heaven, and gotten high. But he's a profound influence. The thing that Mac picks up on from both Professor Longhair and Booker is his R&B, New Orleans R&B, is heavily inflected by Latin rhythms and Latin syncopation, and especially Cuban. There's a big line between two islands in the Caribbean and New Orleans. One is Cuba, and the other one is Haiti. Haiti provided a lot of the people that came to New Orleans early on. Cuba provided a lot of the rhythmic pulse for New Orleans music. And it's how they smush together, Booker, Professor Longhair, and Mac, how they smush together that thing of Latin music with the more 2 and 4 drive of R&B and soul music and African music.
Yeah. This song inspired many different people. This is where Bob Dylan got the title for his 1986 album, Knocked Out Loaded. All right. Stack-a-Lee. Did I say that one right?
I don't know about that. I've seen it as Stagger-Lee a lot,
Well, I got it written as Stack.
Oh, I know.
Dash
Stack,
dash Lee.
Yeah.
This is the legendary historical story of Stagger Lee Shelton, a black pimp in the late 1800s St. Louis, Missouri, who shot and killed his acquaintance Billy Lyons in the Bill Curtis Saloon after Lyons took Shelton's Stetson hat during an argument. So he took his hat and then he killed him. And I can relate to that, because if you can do anything you want to me, but you just don't fuck with my hat. I only got a couple.
What about your blue suede shoes?
I might stab, not shoot.
Okay,
I would
fair
stab or Nancy Kerrigan Club, but not.
You were a very fair man.
So a version of this song dates back to 1897, but it was first recorded in 1923 and became a #1 hit for Lloyd Price in 1959. Peter, play 111.
When all the ladies with that style, oh, Stagger-Lee was dead. Some come dressed in orange color, some can dressed in red.
I love when musicians take like this horror story and then they put this music to it and make it so upbeat, you know? I wish they would have kept doing that throughout the years. I could just imagine it being like, oh, the Menendez brothers, they were bad boys. Menendez brothers couldn't play with their toys, but they killed. All right, that's respect to the Menendez family. I'm sorry, not the brothers. They can go fuck themselves.
I thought you were going to segue into the OJ song. I was waiting for
O.J. Simpson in his car.
There you go.
The cops are chasing him, but he's driving too far in his Bronco. Oh, yeah, he got the Ford Bronco. Ba-doot-da-diddly-doot-ba-da-ba-scandack.
You notice that as Ford has brought back the Bronco, they haven't used OJ in the ads.
Oh, fuck no, dude.
Come on.
That was the greatest advertisement in the world, though.
Yeah. Not driving it slow anymore. I'm interested by that version of Stagger Lee because a lot of people take it slow. A lot of people take it as like a blues kind of feel to it. And Mac kind of does this, what Stan Freberg, the musical parodist of the earlier age, called that cling, cling, cling jazz, those triplets on the piano, which gives it an almost 50s R&B feel to it.
Yes,
even though
it does.
They're doing it in the 70s. Lloyd Price, whom you mentioned, was also a performer from New Orleans. So Mac is picking up on the not only on the history of an R&B song, but on
the history of New Orleans. Yeah. Look, I wanted to ask you about revisiting stuff, just like Mac is doing. You revisited Derek Smalls for the 2018 album Smalls Change: Meditations Upon Aging.
Yes.
And at a show at the Wiltern that my writer Morty went to, he said everybody he knew loved it. So what I want to know is what drew you back to Derek Smalls?
First, I got to say the video of that concert will be coming out soon.
Nice.
11 cameras, really great sound, a lot of great guest artists from the rock and roll universe. There was going to be another Spinal Tap tour, and I had started writing some songs. And when the tour went away, I thought, fuck, I'm going to keep writing songs and do something with them. I'd just gotten into the head of that first couple of songs and thought, I don't want to stop doing this right now. And then from there, I just got more and more stupidly pretentious in terms of what kind of show Derek would do. He ended up doing a show with not one, because that's cliche, but two symphony orchestras.
Yes.
Which, still hasn't been repeated.
No, I don't think and Metallica hasn't done that.
No, they sure haven't. And getting this whole bunch of guest stars to be in on the joke on the record and then in the concert too. And a whole new twist on Stonehenge, where we actually go live via satellite to Stonehenge in the middle of the show, forgetting that it's the middle of the night and foggy at Stonehenge in the middle of the night.
Brilliant.
It's stuff like that,
Yeah, I get it. It's such a great character. I really wish I could have seen the show, and I will watch the concert video when that comes out. 100%.
Good.
Coming to the next song, which I would have, speaking of your concert that I wish I would have seen live, I wish I could have been in the room when Mac recorded Tippy Tina. This is just perfect. Peter, play 44 seconds, bud. I have no idea what he's saying, but man, to me, I can just envision Mac just like wrecked at the piano, and it couldn't be more perfect. I love the vibe this song creates. I love that he's not even singing into the microphone. He's probably leaning back, and it's just, if I could have seen this live, I just think it's perfect. I think it fits so well with this album, and it's such a break from all the, and I'm not going to even call it like mayhem at all, but I mean, a lot of these songs have so many moving pieces, so when you can just cut it down to just him and focus on what he's doing, it really shows you just how incredible of a performer he is.
Oh, yeah.
Thoughts on this?
If this record had been done in New Orleans, I'm pretty sure that they would have just stuck a mic in Mac's piano room and had him do it like that, and it would sound like that. But this was done in L.A. And by a New Orleanian, transplanted New Orleanian, Harold Batiste produced it, one of the great musical families of New Orleans. And I'm sure they did it in a studio and then spent 2 weeks doing the working on the reverb to make it sound like it was one mic in Mac's room. Tipatina is usually attributed to Professor Longhair.
Professor Longhair from 53, yeah.
And I don't think you could get two people in New Orleans to agree on what the fuck the words are.
Yeah, but I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I usually read the lyrics, Harry, and I was like, no, let it be a mystery, because whatever he's saying, I feel. And feeling is way more important.
Yeah. Professor Longhair was a really legendary and deservedly so piano player. He was also a real interesting singer. He had this habit of at the end of a phrase, he'd hit a note, and I'm going to do a really bad job of this, and drop an octave.
Yeah.
And so Tipitina's was a song where he really could give that full sway, and nobody can do it like him. But it's there's a famous nightclub in New Orleans called Tipitina's in honor of that song. It is, I think, if anything in the second half of the 20th century is a deeply embedded piece of the New Orleans musical culture, it is Tipitina. It's that deep into it.
Sure, it feels like that. Well, being that, you've adopted New Orleans as your second home.
It's my first home.
It's your first home. Well, you if I'm wrong, you were born in here. You were born.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where I live. That's where I vote. It's my home.
Okay, totally. So what is the best kept secret we all need to know about the Big Easy?
Well, I would say that everybody knows about the music and the food and the way the place looks. Unfortunately, the marketing for the city to the rest of the country and the rest of the world has been sort of outsourced to Budweiser and Miller in the last few decades. So people think that everybody in New Orleans is, what Bourbon Street is, which is basically Bourbon Street is when tourists come and think, hey, I can do anything I want because that's what it is. New Orleans is what you find out that's really shocking or surprising, even to if you live there, if you see this for the first time, is the day after Mardi Gras, which is Ash Wednesday. And you just are gobsmacked by the number of people with ashes on their forehead that are walking around. It's a very Catholic town.
Wow.
It's a very Catholic town. And one of the reasons that it's special is because it's a Catholic town in a Protestant state. And it lives in this really great tension with the rest of Louisiana, Louisiana north of the I-10, which is really, really deep south in that way. And it's Baptist deep south. And you don't really get a sense of that cleavage until you go there and see, wow, this is really, I mean, half the street names in New Orleans that aren't named after Confederate soldiers are named after saints. But I think the thing that's most salient is when you walk around and you realize this is a big city where strangers talk to each other. And every errand, you set out a day, you've got 3 errands to accomplish. They're going to take 3 times as long because they're going to visit with you.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to visit with you. And man, I had a really dramatic example of that a while back. I was in Venice, California, near where I stay when I'm in LA. And I had a 10-item list to get at the Whole Foods. And I went in there and got my 10 items and went to the 10 items or less line and checked out and got to my car and went, fuck, I forgot 2 items that I was on my list. So I go back in and I get the 2 items. I end up at the same 10 item or less line. 5 minutes later, And the guy says to me, paper or plastic? And I thought, if this was New Orleans, he'd say, you forget something, baby?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. Because if you try to talk to somebody in LA, they're like, don't fucking talk to me.
Yeah.
I'm triggered right now. Stop it.
You know, what the rest of the country, two things are going on. The machines are becoming more like people, and the people are becoming more like machines. And that's not happening in New Orleans yet.
Not yet. All right. Those lonely, lonely nights. Here's another mid-50s Earl King song. Peter, play a little taste.
Days been dark since you've been gone. Baby, just please come back and bring the light. If you'd only compromise and free me from this lonely night.
What I love about this record, I wonder if he knew this when sequencing it, but I feel like every song just keeps getting better and better. It's like this album is just climbing, and it's just phenomenal. Thoughts on this?
Well, I again, Earl King. I'm glad that Mac put a spotlight on Earl King at this point. He had labored in had hits in the 50s, and then had kind of labored in obscurity since then. And I think Mac helped bring Earl back to prominence, at least for a little while in New Orleans. Great songwriter. And, you know, that what you're hearing in that song, that dum, ba-dum, ba-do-dum, was really a staple of 50s rock and roll. But Earl took it and put such a great melody and such a great lyric on top of it that he took something that was nearly a cliche and made it fresh and bright and new again, you know?
Very. So it's funny that you said that, because I wanted to ask you about your time on SNL as a writer and a cast member from 79 to 80. Now, I know you're laughing because it's very interesting. So from 79 to 80, you do it. Then you come back after Spinal Tap with Christopher Guest and Billy Crystal for the 84 and 85 season. And you've said that your first season was unpleasant. So why did you go back?
Smart people can do dumb things. Ask Bill Clinton.
And what was your experience like the second time?
I left in mid-season.
Really?
Mm-hmm. 1:43 a.m. January 13th.
What was the breaking point?
Basically, I had been told early on, you're the guy among all these people who really cares about politics and the news and stuff, so we're really looking for you to do that. And 3 times during that half season, I had a Ronald Reagan sketch. He was the president at the time. And 3 times the sketch was killed during the show. I was in Ronald Reagan makeup, and 3 times it's killed during the show. I'm going, okay, guess you're really depending on me for the topicals. It's hard to remember now because it has become such a topical news-oriented show. But when I was there both times, I was the only one who was writing stuff about the news, about newscasters or the news. There was Weekend Update, but I'm talking about the sketches in the show. They were all whimsical or looking for, oh, here are people in bee costumes or, stuff that had nothing to do with what was going on in the world. But they were just kind of whimsical comedy. And I felt neither time did I belong there. Also, I like to disappear behind the characters I do. That's why when you see that video of Donald Trump singing Son-in-Law, it ain't me. It's me, but it ain't me.
Yeah.
That's my goal state. And, I know that certainly the producer of the show, the first time I was there, always wanted to see the actor in front of the character. That's why, Dan Aykroyd wore a mustache playing Nixon. It's like, oh, yeah, Nixon's got a mustache tonight. Huh? Just a total different attitude about aesthetics.
Is there a moment from Saturday Night Live that you can look back and be like proud of, or
men synchronized swimming?
So do you want to talk about that a little bit, because it's probably that's I think the first time I saw that was on Comic Relief, or maybe not Comic Relief, but fuck it, maybe it was like an SNL retrospective years ago.
They run it every year.
Yeah, I mean, like, can you just tell me a little bit about that? Because that's you and Martin Short and Christopher.
And Chris Guest.
I mean, how much fun that must have been.
Yeah, well, anytime you have a job in an office in Midtown Manhattan, you can say, don't bother me. I got to go rehearse in the pool for a week. You've got it made. I was in Los Angeles that year. '84 was the year of the Olympics in Los Angeles. It was the first time that 2 pseudo events had been added to the Olympic calendar: rhythmic gymnastics with the ribbons and the things.
Oh yeah.
And synchronized swimming. And I thought, this is a joke that these people get the same medals as the 50-yard dash and the pole vaulters and the real athletes. I used to say. And so when I came to New York, I was just full of anger about that and infected Marty and Chris with it. And we came up with that for the first episode of the new season, which was I'll tell you one other reason that I thought probably was a good place to get out of the second time. Chris and Marty and I think maybe Billy, had talked about the show is well established enough. We don't need guest hosts to get ratings. And guest hosts means that you're writing comedy for people with no comedy chops.
Yes.
And also, more seriously, you're making fun of politicians in their presence or with them. So in effect, you're helping to humanize them. And that shouldn't be the satirist's job. You go humanize your own fucking self. Don't use me to do it. So we made that case to the producer the second time around. And so that first episode, the one the synchronized swimming was on, had no guest host. It just had the cast. And we thought, all right, not bad. Good stuff on the show, kind of good feeling. By week 3, guest host was Jesse Jackson.
Oh, yeah, he's not funny.
And the office had been turned into the Operation Push headquarters for the week.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, man, if you going back got us that synchronized swimming sketch, thank you. And I'm sorry you went through hell that second time. But you know what we didn't go through hell? On Huey Smith medley, A, high blood pressure, B, don't you just know it, C, well, I'll be John Brown. This is a tribute to Huey Piano Smith, one of Mac's mentors. And remember when I said my favorite moment was the other 2 songs?
You lied.
I lied again. Kick it!
Baby, don't believe I'm wearing true love you. Don't you just know it? Ha, 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 ha. Hey, Joe.
I sent this song to my friend last night from my acting class because he was like, we were talking about some scene, and I was like, dude, I'm knee deep in Dr. John. He's like, I never listened to Dr. John, and I sent him this. He immediately said, "What album?" And now I'm a fan. I mean, it's just so great. Like I said earlier, you have to be dead inside to not love that moment. I just love the song so much.
Yeah. He clearly was deeply, deeply, deeply influenced by Huey Piano Smith as a performer, as later in his life as a writer, and certainly as a piano player. I never got to see Huey Piano Smith. I mean, the list of people I'm kicking myself that I didn't get to New Orleans early enough to see is really long.
That's all of us, man. That's not just in music. It's like my dad always regrets saying he never went to go see Lenny Bruce. He was invited in Philadelphia when he was in college at Temple, and he was like, I don't have time. I got to study. And it's like, one of the face, I mean, really the voice of all the comics we have now started with him. So don't beat yourself up, Harry. That's what I'm saying.
I did get to see Lenny Bruce.
Did you?
Not only that, I was editing my college humor magazine, went to see Lenny Bruce in Hollywood. People don't really get the deal, but in New York at the time, you needed what was called a cabaret license to perform in nightclubs. And the police department took his cabaret license away because he used dirty words on stage and thereby deprived him of basically the right to eat. The police department, the fucking police department. And so when I saw him in Hollywood, he was fighting some case or other. and you think Donald Trump spends a long time discussing his grievances.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. That was his set towards the end, was just reading the court documents.
And I went backstage afterwards just to say, I'm from this humor magazine at UCLA and big fan, blah, blah, blah. And he tries to enlist me in interviewing jurors for his case. I did get this. And I attended Lenny Bruce's funeral.
Wow.
Where Paul Krasner, the editor of The Realist, which was a great satirical magazine in the 60s, gave just a kick-ass eulogy and send-off to Lenny Bruce.
Can I want to say this to the Fleece Army, my listeners, because you've had such an illustrious career, dude. Here's some of the shit that I pulled out. As a child actor in the 53 movie Abbott and Costello Goes to Mars, as well as on the Jack Benny Show. You were the original Eddie Haskell character in Leave It to Beaver, but your parents wouldn't let you do the series so you could have a normal childhood. Clearly that worked out.
Yeah, that really worked out.
Yeah. You co-wrote the 1979 movie Real Life with Albert Brooks, which is his directorial debut, which lampooned the early phenomenon of reality television. And you scarily predicted just how bad it was going to get. And you wrote for the classic TV show, TV comedy, Fernwood Tonight with Martin Mull and the late, great Fred Willard. You are, my friend, a Renaissance man. It's insane. I just got to know, where did all of that drive come from?
I guess my best guess at trying to explain that is my dad died when I was 12, and I got the message, this doesn't go on forever.
Yeah.
Real strong, real, I got the news. And once that comes through, you want to make the most of the time you got here, I think.
I think you are. More than most people. Everybody should take, any artist should take a cue from your playbook. Trust me, I completely agree with that. I mean, not even so much, I lost my dad, I've lost my best friend. And the thing that makes me enjoy this journey so much is knowing that this is the fun part. Life is the fun part. Yeah. We got to deal with eternity and death, and we have no idea what that's going to be like. So if that doesn't put a fire into your ass to work and do the projects that you love. On a side note, I got to ask, did you fight back with your parents with the Leave It to Beaver thing?
No, I didn't care that much. I had such a great time working for Jack Benny. That was it. That was the best it could ever be. I'm working alongside Mel Blanc, the voice of the Looney Tunes characters. I'm working for maybe the smartest, most generous person I've ever met in comedy. I'm working with a bunch of people where there's never any operatic drama about making comedy. If you know what I mean.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it was just like, we're here to do a job. We all know how to do the job. Let's have fun and go home. It was just, I couldn't have had a better time. So, yeah, okay, so I don't have to Leave It to Beaver.
It's no big deal. Dude, I'm going to be on this animated show that's going to run 31 years.
Yeah, right.
It'll be a ride at Universal Studios. No big deal.
Yeah. By the way, none of my characters are in the ride.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fucking travesty, dude. Lenny.
That's what happens when you offer too little money to an actor.
No, I get it. I totally get it. But I gotta ask this: working with Mel Blanc, is that kind of what started the doing the voices? You were already doing that before?
Yeah, my dad had a tape recorder, and I would get friends over, and we'd do little shows, and I thought I was doing different voices. Of course, with a kid's voice, they all came out sounding the same. But so I realized later on when I was thinking about that, I wasn't training my voice. I was training my ear.
Completely.
Because in my head, they were sounding like who I wanted them to sound like, even though I didn't have the pipes to accomplish it yet.
Sure. But also, being around one of the greatest voice actors and really, in my opinion, the originator It's
not only your opinion. In fact, he was the originator
yeah,
of those,
for sure, dude.
all those characters. I mean, they're being done by others now, but those are Mel's voices.
Yeah, that's Mel. It's 100%
Yeah.
Mel. All right, the album ends with little Liza Jane.
Liza Jane.
God, I am fucking this up, dude. Keep it in there, Peter. Don't cut my mistakes. This is. I want the people to hear the truth.
We're humanizing you.
Yeah, please. I need it. All right, so the record ends with a song that goes back to at least the 1910s. It was likely based on a song sung by slaves before the Civil War as what would have been historically known as a Negro folk song and then appropriated for minstrel shows. Peter, play 115. Once again, proves my point that black people are fucking awesome because out of the worst shit in the world, they created so much incredible art. And that love for being able to do that and write this kind of like songs during an oppressive situation is just incredible. I love that he closed the album with this.
Yeah, that's clearly based on call and response music from Africa. When you learn the histories of these songs and how they go back to chants, New Orleans has a place called Congo Square right across the street from the French Quarter. And Congo Square was where, uniquely among all the southern states, the heavy burden of slavery was allowed to be lifted one day a week. The slaves were allowed to play their music in Congo Square on Sundays. And that's probably why the music culture born from Africa stayed alive in New Orleans when it didn't stay alive elsewhere. Congo Square is really a remarkable part of the city's history. And there's a Southwest Louisiana slide guitar master called Sonny Landreth who wrote a song, I can't express how moving it is, called Congo Square, about that place and its place in the history of Louisiana music. It's well worth hearing. Sonny Landreth is well worth hearing.
I'm gonna check it out, especially if you feel it that much.
Oh yeah,
great album, fantastic way to end it. Like I said, I wasn't a huge Dr. John fan before, but now I'm so happy that this record came up when it did on this list. Do you want to do some facts and then we'll get you out of here?
Yeah.
All right, facts and the facts and the facts and the facts. All right, that's pretty. How is my Dr. John, by the way?
Better than his now.
That's okay. All right. Mac formed his first group, the Dominoes, while still in Jesuit high school, but the priest told him to choose between playing music in clubs or going to school. He was expelled and never looked back. Thank God he decided to do that. So I wanted to ask you, what was your first love that you would have been happy to do without looking back?
Doing comedy in radio and TV. I mean, I have a pretty solid memory. I also have a photograph, but I have a pretty solid memory of the first time I made Jack Benny laugh.
Tell me.
We were doing a script for the radio show, and the kids that he was sort of his Cub Scout troop were doing our version of his show. And I had two characters I did. One was this guy who's played on the Benny show by Sheldon Leonard, and he was always running into this guy, and he was like a racetrack tout. And he wasn't written in a Brooklyn accent, but I threw in a little Brooklyn accent as we were doing the read-through around the table. And his hand went up in the air and slapped it on the table, and he just laughed way out loud. I'm 7 or 8 years old, and I'm just thinking, give me another one of those right away.
Yeah, dude.
That's it. That's what you want, you know?
Oh, to get one of the greats I mean, if not, at his profession in comedy and everything to laugh. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah.
It's happened to me. And I hold on to those moments so dearly. So I'm so glad that he laughed at you for that. You deserved it. You probably deserved it. You probably deserved it.
I earned my laugh, baby.
You earned it. Yeah, for sure. All right. So Mac wrote and performed the title song to the 90s sitcom Blossom starring Mayim Bialik. He also sang the jingle for Popeye's chicken and biscuit restaurants, which I knew Popeyes, didn't know Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
You know that one? It's like, for my opinion nation, the sun will surely shine. So, which of your career highlights would you gladly leave off your resume?
My appearance in the late 1970s movie, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
Ooh. I think I'm watching that tonight, dude.
Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. That's an hour and a half you will never get back.
Oh, come! I got time to burn. Come on, dude. We're in a quarantine, dude. I'm looking for anything to watch right now.
No, do not watch that one.
Did you at least have fun making it?
No, not really. It was a month in Pittsburgh.
Okay, you can stop there.
Exactly.
Got it, dude.
That's all there was.
All right.
No, I should say the fun part was being around another member of the cast, Jonathan Winters.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, but the movie it's the first and the last movie I was ever in where both the producer and director stayed up all night every night doing coke, and it shows.
Okay.
And it shows.
So let's just film this scene really quickly. You're like, all right, Jesus. Do we get a lunch break? No, nobody's eating because I'm not hungry. And I haven't been hungry for the last 3 days.
That's right.
Speaking of that, when Mac was in his early 20s, he got arrested and served jail time for selling and using narcotics and for running a brothel. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering why he went to jail, and that's pretty.
That's
cool
where the music comes from.
Yeah, for sure. And last fact. The Dr. John persona was based on a local voodoo herb doctor and healer who was a 19th century Senegalese prince that moved to New Orleans from Haiti and was rumored to have been married 5 times and over 50 children. Mac originally created it for his old high school friend and fellow session musician Ronnie Barron, who plays piano and organ and sings on this album. After Ronnie declined, Mac took it for himself. I love that story. So much. So the final question I want to ask you is, which of your characters is most endearing to you and why?
Derek. I've spent more time playing Derek than anybody except Richard Nixon, and there's nothing endearing about Richard Nixon. So you spend enough time with a character, and you can slide into it pretty easily, and it feels like a second home.
Sure. All right. So I got to ask this: what's your golden Spinal Tap moment? Like, what has been your favorite moment while playing that character?
I would say we were playing Carnegie Hall, and we were trying to figure out how the Stonehenge appears because it didn't have enough space to drop it. So we were thinking about all sorts of things, and then in that tour we had a fake tour sponsor, which was an adult diaper called Amends, and we hang a banner over the stage that said "Wet is good, dry is better," and another one that said "Rock with confidence." And the guys have come up and say, "No, you can't hang the banner there." We said, "Why not? You can't have commercial sponsorship in Carnegie Hall." "No, you don't understand. This is a joke. No, you don't understand. This is Carnegie Hall." So that evening, I got to come out and say the 3 words that I'm proudest of: Carnegie fucking Hall. I don't think those words had ever been spoken from that stage before.
That's so great. Harry, this is just so phenomenal. Do you have anything you want to promote?
Just check the Trump songs out on YouTube. There's a new one every week, and the next video will be out mid-September. We carry on right through till Till D-Day.
Till D-Day. Dude, I can't thank you enough, Harry, for coming on. Thank you so much, buddy.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? The one and only Harry Shearer. I want him to leave me a voicemail message as any of the characters from The Simpsons. And you know what? He said he wouldn't do it. But you know what? I bet I can get him to do it. Follow him on Twitter at the Harry Shearer and find all things Harry. That's so much fun to say. All things Harry at harryshearer.com. Check out the newest season of The Simpsons. Watch Spinal Tap. Enjoy his work, man. This guy is a fucking legend. Listen to the show. It's an honor that we had this dude on the podcast. Support him in every way. Now, we just listened to Dr. John from 1972. This week, our new music is Mark Broussard, and you are listening to a new version of his song, Come In From the Cold, from Home, the Dockside Sessions. Mark is a musician from Louisiana, and he has described himself as Bayou Soul, pulling from funk, blues, R&B, rock, and his southern roots. And Dr. John is a huge fan of Mark and gave him major props before he passed away. You can find all the links to this music on our website, the500podcast.com. And if you're in a band and were directly influenced by one of these albums or artists and you want your music featured on the 500, send your song to 500podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you put the album and artist that influenced you in the subject line. Next week is Leonard Skinner Week as we go deep into their 1973 debut album. Y'all got some homework to do. Listen to the album, Stay Fleacy, Dougal, Catougal.
My side, I'll shelter you, darling. I've been hurt just like you. I know how hard it is to give your love away, but baby, it's safe. I'm warm. All I'm really asking of you, coming from the cold. I've been hurt just like you. I know how hard it is to give your love away, baby, it's safe. I want all I'm really asking of you is coming from the cold. Throw up all of the memories, they can weigh you down. Love the only way to heal a heart that love has wronged. So baby, give up the fight, 'cause you know it's right, coming from the cold. Baby, you should know I love you. Don't you know that I love you, girl? You're my dying love.